Hey, welcome back to the channel. Are all Polaris Rangers complete junk? Or just the one that I buy? That was dumb. That was dumb. Every tool's a hammer. Unless it's a screwdriver, then it's a chisel.
We need a torch. Hate that nut.
We're not doing that. Because it ain't built till it's overbuilt. Don't force it. Get a bigger hammer. Every day's a school day. Okay, so if you watch a couple of older videos, you'll see that I bought this thing and it was cheap, okay? It was cheap. But anyways, I bought it and it blew up. So I rebuilt the engine. Engine runs nice now, and I was really looking forward to having it for my charity truck and tractor pull to save me a lot of walking. And sure enough, wouldn't start. Apparently it's not charging because by the time I got down there, it was dead, wouldn't run. So that was great. Anyway, I'm kind of bringing you in at the end here. I've already done, I think, the diagnostics and actually got the part. So I'm ready to put it back together. But I wanted to catch you up because if you have a Ranger that is not charging, really, it kind of goes for almost anything. When something that has a stator charging system won't charge, the checks are kind of universal to some extent. There might be some weird things out there that are different, but I'm not going to get real specific on this. I'm just going to show you what needs to happen in order for this thing to make electricity to fill the battery. So let's just dive right in, okay? Okay, so buried down in the bowels of this rig, underneath that cover, behind the flywheel, is a stator. And a stator uses magnets on the flywheel, spinning past a whole bunch of coils, and it generates three-phase AC power. Let me set this up, and I'll show you how I checked it. Okay, on these Rangers, there is a Rectifier / combo regulator, right? So this thing takes AC power from that stator we just talked about in, and it puts out DC power, and it regulates it to 13.5 volts or whatever, something like that your battery can stand. You don't want to boil all the whatever that crap is out of your battery, but we used to call it water back in the day. But you also need to keep it charged. So that's this thing's job. The gray is three-phase, see the three prongs in that plug. Takes in three-phase AC power, puts out DC power, positive, negative. There's only two prongs in this plug. So, like I said, I'm going to try to not be too specific to Polaris Rangers or whatever. Even, lawnmowers since the 1980s probably have had, they've used the stator to charge the battery. They've had a rectifier. Sometimes the voltage regulator is a separate thing. Sometimes they're like this, it's combined. But there's a rectifier and there's a regulator. Whether there's a separate thing that's the regulator or not is totally dependent on what it is you're working on. In this case, it's all one. So I honestly don't know what is bad in here, and there's no taking this apart. Even I can't take this thing apart and fix it. And I like to rip stuff apart, and sometimes, can't always fix it, but at least you can take it apart and figure out how it works. But hey, no, that's it. This is all potted right full of some sort of plastic. So inside here is a circuit board, or more than one, and they pot it, they pour it, they place it into this metal housing with the fins, and then they pour it right full of this goop so that the vibrations and stuff and the water can't get at it, so that it can survive in this, it's kind of rough life here. And then the cover is just to keep that stuff from getting beat up or whatever. So anyways, if you have something, lawnmower, side by side, four-wheeler, whatever, that is, it always has a dead battery, right? It can be several things. It could be the battery itself. The best way to know for sure if your battery's good is to load test it. And that means you have to have a load tester, which is basically a heater element like a toaster. And you hook it to the battery and you turn on the heating element. And it has a little gauge that tells you how, if it recovers okay from putting a load on it, it's okay. If you hit the load and the voltage drops way down and stays down, well, then the battery's no good. And the other thing that can happen is you can have a good battery and you can have a discharge somehow. So like when the thing sits, the battery goes dead. Well, that could be, I mean, in this newer stuff, any kind of electronic whiz-bangetry could have an issue inside it that you don't know about, and it's just causing a little bit of a draw. Or it could be like somebody put lights underneath or whatever. Some of that stuff is so cheaply made that it can be a parasite. It can draw your battery down or whatever. So to diagnose that, you can unhook the wires and you can put an amp meter in line and just see if it's drawing amperage when it's just sitting there. You can also like unplug some stuff. Unplug one thing, see if the thing goes dead or not. If it does, you found a problem. If it doesn't, plug that back in, unplug something else or whatever. You can work your way through that way. But in this case, I didn't have either one of those symptoms. My battery load tests good, and if I charged the battery, it would still be charged 2 weeks later after sitting here, But it would start and it would run fine. But after you run it a while, I noticed it at the 4th of July parade was the first time there's a little light on the dash comes on and says your battery's not charged, or battery's voltage is low or whatever. So from all that, I knew that I had a good battery and I did not have a parasitic draw somewhere. The thing was not charging. When I put a voltmeter on the battery, when it's running, it still read the same voltage as when it's not running. So there's no voltage being pushed back, no energy, no power, whatever, being pushed back into the battery, right? So that leaves you kind of down to two things. I mean, it could be like a bad ground or whatever. If you can't figure it out, you definitely want to go through and clean all your cables and clean all your grounds and all that crap. But I figured it out pretty quickly what it was. And the way I did that was to find this guy, which, like I say, this is the same for lawnmowers, all sorts of things. I'm trying not to be real specific here. So you find this guy and you find the wire. In this case, it was easy because they were one thing. Rectifier, regulator. Rectifier changes AC 3-phase to DC. Regulator regulates how much DC goes out. So once I found this thing, I could unplug the wires, and this one with the yellow wires, in this case, has 3 wires going to it, and this one has 2 wires going from it, right? So from that, you can deduce that this is my 3-phase AC power from the stator, and that this one is my DC power, plus and minus. They're even red and black. So plus and minus back to charge the battery. So what I did was I unplugged this 3-phase wire. I unplugged them both, actually. Started the thing up and tested between, we'll call these A, B, and C, right? So you test A to B, and then you test A to C, and then you test B to C. And that's all 3 combinations that you can have. Make sure your meter is on AC when you do this. Don't use a 12-volt test light. Don't use a meter on DC because it won't give you good numbers. Meter on AC, test the way I just said, and you should be getting a voltage. It'll be different for different vehicles. This one, I had 19 volts. So you should be getting a voltage in AC, and they should all be about the same, somewhere near the same. How close? I don't know. Just if this one was 18 and this one was 30 and the other one was 18, I'd say, okay, there's a problem with that one. But these were all about the same, within less than a volt, and they were all 19, which, I don't know, seems like a decent amount of voltage. So from that, I know that my stator's working. It's sending power back to this thing, right? So then I plugged this 3 wire back in. So I'm now putting my AC power into this thing. And I tested on those 2 lugs right there for DC. Switched my meter to DC and tested for DC output and got nothing, got 0 volts. I tested from the terminal to ground. I tested terminal to terminal. No matter what I did, I could not get any DC volts coming out of this thing. So I feel pretty confident this is my problem. And that test process I just told you, this coming out should have been, 13 and a half, 14 volts maybe DC. It would, essentially it's going to send whatever voltage it's set to. It's going to send that to the battery. The battery basically just absorbs it like a sponge until the battery has that amount of voltage in it. And then it doesn't really shut off. It limits it to whatever that safe volt level is. So, to make a short story long, that's how I got to where I am. Like I said, I feel pretty confident this is it. It wouldn't be the first time I spent $280 on a new thingamajig, and it didn't actually fix the problem. But all I can do now is plug it in and try it. This unit does not have to be grounded. The bracket that it was bolted to is like, it's all paint, and stuff, so it certainly isn't grounded. So I'm just going to plug in the 3-phase power from the stator side. I'll test the output here. I like to rule things out, right? So I'm going to test it here. Hopefully it's good voltage. And then I'll plug in the other half, and then I'll test it at the battery just to make sure everything is connected and working as it's supposed to. If that all works, then I'll bolt this thing in and Bob's your uncle, as they say. Okay, I'm gonna do that, and then I'll come back. I will let you know what I find out. Good news. This fresh charged battery, I had it on the trickle charger overnight. It's 13 volts, just sitting here, not running, right? So if I start it, there, with it running, steadily climb. We're right around 14 volts. That's good. That'll keep a battery alive. So I think maybe it's fixed. I just got to button this thing back up the rest of the way, and then I'll just drive it a little bit, and I'll just see if it keeps the battery charged. It's pretty much that simple. Okay, that's about that. Let me just back up, right? If I did not have AC voltage coming from my stator, then I would most likely have a bad stator. And if you can find the specs, you can check the resistance across those fields also, all 3 different fields. Even if you don't know what the number is supposed to be for ohms, if they're all pretty close to the same exact number, then you're probably good. But if you have one that spikes, that's like dead shorted or wide open, that's probably your problem, the stator. But me, knowing that I had the same voltage from all 3 legs of that AC power, I felt pretty confident that stator was okay, if that makes sense. I did check it. I did take the ohm meter and check them when it's not running. You check them across each other to see if they're grounded or not, and they were all pretty close to the same number. I had Googled and looked up what that resistance was supposed to be, and I don't remember the numbers. These were off from it quite a bit, but also they were all about the same. And then when I realized I was getting voltage, I thought it's probably okay. I mean, this may not be solved. There may still be issues here that I have to deal with. I don't know. But it seems to be working, and I'm going to ride it a bunch and see if it keeps the battery topped off. Whatever you're working on, if there were only 2 wires coming from the stator, coming into that, you'd have to track down you'd have to follow the wires to see which one came from the stator, or if there's a plug, test it right at the stator, where the wires come out of the crankcase, And I'm assuming there might be things that are single phase AC from the stator. I don't know for sure. If you know, put it in the comments. Are there things that are single phase AC, so you just test across 2 wires to see what the AC power is, or are they always 3 phase? I'm not sure how they do it. I guess if the windings were a multiple of 3, it would make more sense to do 3 phase, but then maybe there's times where they, I don't know. I don't know. So there's certainly some variables out there, right? If you landed here, you know, the search found this video when you're trying to work on your lawnmower, things might be a little bit different, but the principle's the same. AC power from the stator, rectifier rectifies it to DC power, and then also regulates it, or maybe there's a second thing that's a regulator to regulate the DC power to the battery so you don't cook your battery. I like to break things down as simplest as I can, and that's about as simple as it can get. If you're working on something old that has a generator instead of an alternator or a stator in the flywheel like this, like an alternator on a car is a stator. It makes AC power, and then right in the unit normally turns it to DC power. Normally, not always. Nothing's always. But if you're working on something old that has a generator on it, those make DC power. They're basically a starter that you're spinning, sort of, that you're spinning and you're taking power back out of. So it's 2 very different animals. You know, one requires a lot more electronic whiz-bangetry than the other. The generator is very simple, but also didn't work very good. That's why they figured out how to do it this way. So I think I've belabored the point long enough. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the comments. Depending on what you're working on, I may or may not be of any help whatsoever. But there's a chance I could help you, so feel free to ask. If you'd like to buy a Ranger, just let me know. I got a feeling this one should go down the road. Okay, I don't think I can drag that on possibly any longer than I already have. Just want to thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you very much. Make sure you have clicked subscribe. I hope the video was helpful for whatever it is that you're working on. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.